what is it? Not last section, but that was Friday, Thursday, Friday, and today in the morning show. Not in the morning show, sorry, in the classes on chart prep. So let me get my supercharts up and running. By the way, we took a trading here at my late show, trading with OC. It's still moving upwards in
Yeah.
here. I took TP1.
Oh, nice, man.
What is it? Oh, sorry.
I said hi.
Oh, thank you. So TP number 1, TP number 2, close my trade, going back down. Change back in color of green. So I will be waiting for one more thing in here, which is going to be that kind of closing green. And I will be maybe going back with another new entry with half of a position. At this point, it seems like we're cooling off. We already have the diamond that I was expecting, this reversal diamond in here. And hopefully we can see that. Let me remove mine. So this is mine. So maybe we can see the ADX flipping back up. I think that would be fantastic. Let me see, for example, what we have in here. Also, kind of like a goose head playing out at this point. This goose head was a little bit above the zero line, not quite the area that I like to see it, but again, an area that is important, and that is because not on the oscillator, it is not important on the oscillator, it is mostly important on how the price action is doing. So let me clear this up. Let me go to another setup so I can show you what I'm talking about. All right, and perfect. All right, so if I zoom in as much as I can, this is the daily chart for Bitcoin. This is a previous high. All right, something important. There you were saying? Oh, was that a bad mic? So something important it is that usually we look at trend lines, right? When the trend line is broken, for example, in here, when your trend line is broken, the trend is broken, right? So it's not about the breakout, it's about the retest, your entry, and then off we go, right? And we just rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. When we do the same here, the trend line is broken. It's not about the breakout, it's about the retest. Let me zoom in so we can see it better. Here it is. So it's not about the breakout, it's about the retest, and then off we go. So when the trend line is broken, the trend is also broken, right? The same thing here, when the trend line is broken, the trend is broken. So we had a broken trend line right now. Let me just get rid of everything so we can start seeing it. So as we can see, there is a very nice trending here, right? If I turn on all of my mess, we'll see, let me just get this out of the way, that we have a very significant trend line in here. In fact, let me just change that of color. Let's do it white. Let's make it a little bit thicker, and there it is. So that trend line, it's broken, right? So it's not about the breakout, it's about the retest, but what could we maybe expecting? Well, then when we measure a retracement, we usually measure a retracement with a box, right? I usually take the retracement bottom, not from the very, very bottom, but when the trend line has been broken or when I have a retest consolidation, right? In this case, that will be here, all right? So when the trend line is broken, so breakout retest, and then to the very top. Usually we look for the zero line or the center line, or we do also look for the thirds, right? So 1/3, second third, and third. So usually I look for a second third movement in here. So if I be a little bit more exquisite about it, which is a lot, so I'm gonna just leave it as is. We see that usually we are aiming at 102,800 or 102,300, right? For a bounce. So what had happened?
Definitely.
What is it?
Yeah, definitely. It's the macro value area, in my opinion, isn't it?
Oh yeah, absolutely. In fact, I think that is a Fibonacci retracement zone. Not quite sure. Hey, TRADEFLY, how's it going, brother?
It's good, man. How you doing?
Nice. How's it good? Jesse, you were saying sorry, my friend?
No, I didn't say anything.
Oh, got it. All right. So basically here we already have almost or already the first retracement, right? Important in here. So usually at the top we start looking for bottoming patterns. What is a topping pattern? Just like bottoming patterns, exactly the same things, but to the inverse, right? So in this case, is this gonna be a head and shoulders, right? Are we gonna have maybe a double top? Are we gonna have, because quite now we don't have a lower low, right? So are we gonna have a lower high and then a lower low? So what is it going to be, right? So and what is the things telling us? So for example, what is our oscillator telling us? This is already a little bit advanced and straight to the point instead of going to do the whole analysis. But if you look at our MVP oscillator right here, the MVP oscillator, well, we're already in purple, which is usually bad, right? It's downtrend. But when we're looking at purple, we're looking at this kind of bellies, right? This kind of bellies, and it seems like we are forming that belly. Not only we're looking for that belly, we're also looking for some candles right down here, or some bars right down here, bright green bars right down there. And that is because that tells us when it's time to start DCAing. There's a little caveat here, which at this point I don't think that's so meaningful. Let me add first my zero line. So we have a point of reference. Let's go for coordinates. Let's do the 0. Let's right click it. Let's lock it. Perfect. And it is that usually when I'm looking at the green candles, I also want my ribbon to be below the 0 line. In fact, for the best case scenario, I want it to be below the center of the lower channel, if that makes sense. So I want it to be in here, right? So here, should I be DCAing in? Not really, right? It's not something that I really would actually like to, right? But if you see the results in here, look at that. Great area of DCA, well, just a little pump. Then the next area of DCA, that was a much bigger pump, and you held, well, then it did win lower, right? But overall, went higher to make that higher high. So that double topping here, right? And then that's when we retrace back downwards. So let me see. By the way, guys, if I haven't invited you up to speak or you don't want to speak, don't cancel the invitation. Just leave it out there so I know that it is still pending and I did not miss your invitation. But also, if you want to jump in, feel free to jump in as you wish. All right, so the
That
point
makes
here,
a lot of sense.
what is it?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense for me.
Oh, nice. Yeah, absolutely. And there's something also interesting that I want to show you in a bit, which is I don't think that the bottom is in, the top is in yet. Because, well, our first bounce is going to be here, but let me show you something that happened almost exactly, right? And it happened right here. So look at it. Let me just get rid of all of my drawings, or as many drawings as I can, right? And the point is that look at this trend line in here, right? We had some flood pause of bullish continuation, flat pause of bullish continuation, a flag, and something weird in here, right? Still. And then finally the double top, rejection, losing the trend line, right? And then what happens? We retrace to 1/3. And let me show you that square. So from here to there, where it is usually a 30 here, in fact, a little bit higher, somewhere around there. Look at that, almost perfectly to the first third. But also look at where my arrow is at this point. Right here, right? And let me just fix that box ever so slightly. Maybe I can change it. I don't know why I cannot move it out of its way. All right. like that maybe. There we go. I think that's perfect. And eventually, what happened here? Well, not eventually. As we broke down, we went here and created a technical lower low. At this point, we're expecting a lower high. At this point, we're expecting a lower low. What happens? We don't get a lower low. This is telling you a couple of stuff. First, that we could be into a range, which is the most important part. Also, we're not going to be just trading the range. We're going to be looking into a couple of other instruments. For example, this, even if in the future it doesn't play it out, right? But we want to be prepared because we don't know. But also, look at that. If this was a triangle, it breaks out, right? It's not about the breakout, it's about the retest, and then off we go to dynamic reactor. And very casually, just like that, I mean, look at where we hit. Not only dynamic reactor, we hit the center of the retracement, right? Expectation.
Yeah.
So I believe this is something that we are into. And if I zoom out, if I go to the weekly, you'll see, let's do that exercise. You'll see that just like in the smaller trends, let's go once again to the daily. Look at how, as I go up, I have flat pause of bullish continuation, pump. Flat pause of bullish continuation, pump. Flat pause of bullish continuation, pump until I start making that anomaly, right? So that is because the market needs either a big retracement to dynamic reactor, in which case, where is it going to be, right? Or it needs to range, which in that case also, what are we going to be looking at? Very close to that area. Nonetheless, what I want to show you, it is the constant of flat pause of bullish continuation, right? If I zoom out, you'll see flat pause of bullish continuation. If I zoom in, you also see the same fractal, right? Flat pause of bullish continuation. So why, if I zoom out, I wouldn't be seeing that? In fact, I do. Let's see. Sub pump. Flat pause of bullish continuation. Pump. Maybe this is, remember, this was the first flat pause. And then on the 4 hours, this was a forever channel, right? What if in here, we have a forever channel also, which makes the flat pause of then a bullish continuation. This also means that look at how in this area we are slowly or slightly tilted downwards, right? In fact, if I get rid of this,
Definitely.
right? So I can even take this line and look at that. It coexists, or nails those bottoms, right? So I think I can clone this. Let's see. Well, can I clone it? Yep. And then put it up there.
Oh, yeah.
Perfect. Yeah. So what if this is a larger zone, right? And if we're looking at maybe the start of the top is not in here, but in here, right? What if we have something like that, right? Something like that. Again, this is just out of the blue, the lines direction. I'm just trying to copy the same direction that we had it here, right? But bigger. So do I have something that kind of like a matches up? Well, not for now, but I do have this very interesting trend line. What would that trend line do that did before, right? And what am I so into the fractals at this point? I'll answer that in a second, but I want you first to look at, all right, if we come to the trend line, we're not going to be making a what? We're not going to be making a lower low, right? We're going to be making a higher low, and then maybe we're not going to be making again a higher high, which that takes us to the same strategy that we did before, trying to make a triangle, right? Until it breaks down, maybe go to slightly below dynamic reactor on weekly, right? And then that's when we go off into a big purchase. So just to prepare you, this is way ahead, right? This is way, way, way ahead. But also, I want to make sure that we are understanding where we're following. Why is that? Because we did the same back in here. I don't know if you guys remember, I gave this idea somewhere around March or something like that. And what I did, and let's go to the data so we can see it a little clearer and clearer. There we go. I just grabbed this retraction from this candle to this candle, and then I paste it over here, right? So if you see, they are the same thing, right? The only difference.
Right.
Hey, what's up, brother? How is it going, Piper?
100%.
This is my
Oh.
realtor in Dallas. If you guys need a realtor in Dallas, this is who you talk to.
How's it going?
He
I'm Chris.
there's Amy.
Hey,
Yeah,
Amy.
we are closing on the house. We're closing on the house right now. So I just wanted to say hi to everybody in the community. I miss you all, and hopefully tomorrow we will be up and running on a internet system to do a show.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Don't worry, brother.
So maybe Wednesday.
Maybe Wednesday. Amy just said they're doing an install tomorrow morning. So, but I just wanted to say hey to everybody. I miss you guys.
We miss you, brother.
All right, later, guys.
Later. All right, so it seems like till Wednesday you got me, guys, giving the morning show. By the way, I have prepared a new system. I'm going to be testing it tomorrow, in which I will actually get the news from an API, so I should be getting them instantly instead of me doing the research manually. Sorry about that. So I will have a little bit more time to explain and tie them all together. So it might be a little bit more, less blah blah and more pum pum, if that makes sense. Bless you, OC. Bless you, my friend. Thank you, my friend. I really love you. All right. So what is it happening here? Look at that. We called for this. Sorry, for this a long time ago. All right. And it's not about who says what, right? It's about, all right, I think we nailed it and identifying it. Perfect. Let's try to do the same thing, right? So what are we seeing here? And not only that, I would say, well, we were able to here together to pinpoint the areas piece by piece, and they have been almost exactly one to another, right? I mean, that's very funny. And we called out basically the top. And well, kind of, because I need to be honest here. There was also the expectation that we get a little bit higher and then we flip, right? Still, we went right into my red box in here for my retracement like that. What are we having? Well, it's not a straight line to the downside, but absolutely we're having a movement to the downside. So what is up next? Looking for this double bottom. I think we have the first bottom, right? Or even somewhere around here, the first bottom, something like that, secondary bottom. And then I don't think that we're going to see this. Or if you want to be more one-to-one, this right here is right there. And then whatever happens in here is going to happen right there. So slightly smaller. All right. And then as we hit dynamic reactor, well, then we're going to pierce it just ever so slightly and then push upwards and higher, right? So that's one of the fractals that we are looking at this, right? So at this point, we're looking for that dead cat bounce, maybe that ugly head and shoulders, maybe retracement to dynamic reactor. Dynamic reactor right now will be sitting based on the time that it might be taking it, somewhere around 90 something here, 800,000. But we also looked at, if we look at the big picture here, a possible retracement, and where's my box? To 98. Very, very close to the 100K, right? So everything is pairing one to another. Let me clear this up because the next time I open it, I don't want to be so much like, I don't know. I don't want to have that much spaghetti. So that is one thing that I see. Another thing that could be happening again, and we already talked about this, it is the range in here, right? Till third, maybe till somewhere around half, and then off we go. So far, this is what I get. And let me show you one more thing that I showed you guys on the previous trading with OC, right? And for that, let's save this. Let's go to this one, trading with OC. And we not only, by the way, called out this beautiful trade, but also we learn about the Bollinger Bands, all right? On the Bollinger Bands, it's just default settings, haven't changed anything. But the only thing that I want to bring to your attention really quickly, right, it is that when we are getting ready to push through, we form a range. And then when we are almost at the middle or at the end of the bullish movement, we have this little pull out, right? This little valley, or yeah. So what happens in here, look at the valley at the end, look at this valley at the end of the bullish movement, and then what it comes, the flat pause of bullish continuation, right? So on and so forth until that valley, it doesn't really stands out, right? And we create another shape, which is something like in here. We have not really a visible valley, right? But we turn back around, creating a downtrend, and then the same compression, all right? Let's focus just for now into the valleys, into this kind of valleys, all right? And also, let me zoom out on the daily. We'll even go to the, I would say, weekly, if that makes sense. All right, perfect. In here, you got me. Oh, and this is, all right, it just went faster. In here, we can see, let me just turn this off. We can see the size of those blow-off tops, right? As we move to the right, well, then things get shrinking a little bit unless I just fix this up, right? So something that I want to call to attention is that everybody was just making so much money in there with little money, but the movements were bigger. But how can you say that if this is actually visibly bigger? This is bigger because this is how real life we should be seeing it, because there is much more money, right? Thus, even when we have by geometry, a bigger fall, this is still not by percentage the same size. Let me show you. For example, from here to there, this is a 70% retracement, right? If I go all the way in here, that will be a negative, I mean, we'll be going to even to negative. So look at that. I mean, it's just a much bigger retracement, if that makes sense, right? Because to get a 70% retracement in here, I just need this much amount. Does that make sense? So back in the day, because of the money allocated in Bitcoin, so the market cap, we needed less money to make a bigger movement. Now we need much more money to make the same movement. Does that make sense? And this keeps going upwards and upwards and upwards, right? So the more money we have, the bigger the movement that we're gonna be having. And based on my theory, the completed or more complete shape that we're gonna have. What is the complete shape? Going up, flat pause of bullish continuation, maybe sweep of the lows, and then going up. Flat pause of bullish continuation, right? And then going up, and then a bigger, maybe even if we have a double top, maybe a triple top, or maybe slight triple top aiming upwards, right? For then the retracement in here. that then gives up the next cycle, if that makes sense, right? So the more market cap that we have, the longer that we can stay above areas in here. Why? Because there are more diamond hands, as well as there are more paper hands, right? So why am I showing you this? Because this is how you see it. When you try to analyze in an equality retracement, if that makes sense. So basically taking out the money, the amount of money or the volume involved, but also keeping the percentage equally, right? You do this L, logarithmic. Why? In this case, you see now that the percentage actually represents what they should be representing, percentages. And those percentages represent size without the money allocation, if that makes sense. Remember what I showed you? This was a what? An 85% movement. Well, right here, it is an 85% movement, while in here is still the same 85% movement, while in here is still the same 85% movement. You see how previously when I measured this retracement, that was a 70% retracement, right? Remember? Or somewhere, here we go, somewhere around here, yeah. And then I push it over here, it was a negative 90 something, right? So now the percentage are fixed. So we can see percentage of growth. Now it makes much more sense how the big influence of the movement could make you a lot of money, and how the first cycles made you 99%, or even negative 99, because I'm doing this wrong. Let me do it again. This is the way. All right. Now they were making you what? 11,000%. Well, now they're just making you a 2,000%, and maybe this case they will only make you, I don't know, a 700, 800% gains from the very bottom, right? So you see how things now start getting shorter. Why? Because there's much more money there. So you need more, you need to compensate that volume to that percentage. All right. All right. Too much talking. At this point, let me just get rid of the L in here. Let's turn on the Bollinger Bands, and I want to remind you guys the little belly, right, where we're gonna be paying our attention. So usually that belly peaks at the very top before the range starts, right? And then when the range starts, well, then basically this is the end of the market, or just a flat positive bullish continuation, right? The belly, here is the range, right? So on and so forth. But if we change this slightly and we do this L, let me clear this up. And what are we seeing here? We're seeing some dripping. You see that? Let me mark in here, and I already have, with this red line where we have the peak of that dripping zone. And usually that is at the very top, of the bullish market. All right. So let me just get rid of this once again so we can have a much better, cleaner perspective and view. Perfect. What happened here at the very top of the bullish market? Look at that dripping scenario, right? At the very bottom, in here again, the very top. In fact, just one or two candles. Oh, yep, somewhere around here, the very top of it, right? So how are we doing? Let me just get right because of this, because I just drew this manually. All right. How are we looking? Do we have some dripping? Yeah, that's what it measures. I'll show you in a second. But that's from the very, very, very bottom to the very top. So Prior to no Bitcoin, is it still qualified as a high risk asset? What? Prior to now? Oh yeah, I mean, Bitcoin has always been a risk asset. So only when it got accepted into the actual market, right, which was, I believe, 2 cycles ago, somewhere, this was not tradable in the actual market. You needed a web page, and that web page was the first broker, and that broker was the only broker that you could basically trade on, which was BitMEX, if I'm not mistaken. And then there was no USDT to get out of there. So kind of, I mean, absolutely yes. The answer is yes, technically speaking, but it did not require all of the things that we needed to be a asset up into the stocks, right? If that makes sense. So that's how it came to be. The addition into BitMEX of Ethereum and Litecoin, that's how it came to become the first crypto market. So the start of the actual trading zone. And then the stable coins came along, which they were much better because, I mean, then you could only just buy or sell Bitcoin. That was it. So how do you hedge against inflation or the inflation of Bitcoin, which is not inflationary, but you know, the ups and downs. Where do you go out, right? There's nothing to go out. You actually just bought Bitcoin and that's it, right? And if you want to sell it, you need to set your sell order and then almost be completely out. And oh man, that was kind of like a hard. What I used to do back in the day was a 2xb short, which I called a protection short, a complex scenario stuff. Hopefully we never go back in there, and I don't think we will. But other than that, let me ask you, do we see some dripping here? Do you think the end is near? I don't think so. I mean, yes, we had this itty bitty belly as we had it here, as we had it here, as we had it there, right? So there is 2 things that I'm going to be looking for. First one, this is the previous cycle, right? This was the previous bottom. Look at how first we had this huge dripping zone like this, all right? Or like that. So what I'm doing is just moving it up until it touches the price action. And then looking at the most recent cycle bottom, right? And do the same, going all the way down here, grabbing this low and this low, and then moving it up until it touches price action in here. So when I start seeing the Bollinger Bands doing this, guess what I'm going to be doing? I'm going to start taking some profits, right? I don't care if it's all the way down here or all the way down there. That will depend on the movement or the parabolic movement of Bitcoin. There is a little breakthrough between here and there. Can anybody tell me what is the difference between this cycle and this other cycle? Other than the volume, of course, or the market cap. It starts with an E and it ends with an F. And in the middle there is a T. The ETF. The Bitcoin ETF approval. Yeah. Wave C? No, good, brother, love it. Love it, my friend. I love for your participation. The ETF. The ETF. So why is it important? What does it change things? Remember that, and I've talked about this in the past. When we didn't have the ETF or the volume Well, the cycle was ruling the parabolic movement, so it become much more attractive, right? Easy money, fast money, like right on our fingertips, right? But as right here, as we got just enough market cap, and this is not programmed. I don't think this is programmed, but I believe, and this is purely my own speculation, and I believe that they had it into consideration. They, the Satoshi Nakamoto as a group, right? As we have enough market cap to sustain the price of Bitcoin, well, then the cycle pump will actually be less relevant. Why? Because now big money, and here's where we basically start competing with Meta. Well, then what happens there? The money by itself, the market cap by itself, now it's comparable to the stock market. So now other companies can start looking at it saying, well, maybe instead of buying Meta or buying Facebook, I can buy Bitcoin, right? Not only that, there is the ETF that allows them to do so, right? Not only that, the ETF opens to the doors to big money jumping in, right? So, despite the cycle is broken, and here it's not that it's broken, it has evolved. Now, the cycle pump doesn't really matter, or doesn't really matter that much. What matters at this point, it is the institutional interest based on the market cap. Guys, last cycle was the last cycle that you could be careless about Bitcoin, right? I would say that right now, you need to start treating this as gold or as something scarce, which it is, that every big company is gonna be after you, trying to get a hold of it and take yours from you, if that makes sense, right? So at this point, this is what I'm gonna be concentrating a little bit more on DCA and less of trading, because I want to concentrate my efforts at accumulating Bitcoin. Of course, I'm gonna keep trading, but I'm gonna be shifting how I manage my trading portfolio, if that makes sense. If before I just send it 10% to my savings account, at this point, I'm gonna be sending 20-30% to my savings account, and then concentrate on slow growing my trading while big growing my holdings, if that makes sense. That doesn't mean that I'm not gonna sell. I'm still gonna sell based on the Piper, DCA plan, and then go back in, go back out, go back in, go back out, so on and so forth. Never fully in, never fully out. So that's what I got for you guys today. Despite we started bearish by breaking a trend line, remember that we broke a trend line. We should be expecting a bit more downtrend, maybe aiming at 97, 100K. That doesn't mean that we are right now at the end of the cycle, or at least I don't see the picture that we are at the end of the cycle. Heck, I don't even see the next belly that tells me that we are at the end of the bullish movement. I mean, it was in here, right? And then what? After the belly, the little range, and then the range needs to react. What happens when the range is broken? Let's see. Well, it's not in here. We need to go lower. We need to take out logarithmic. We need to go to 4 hours, something like that. Double click. When the range is broken and then we fall back down, what happens? We have an opposite belly at the top. So I just don't see it. When you could argue that this was it, but we're not into a range. This is just the peak of that blow off top, right? So far, I just don't see end of the cycle. I don't know, I would say end of the cycle signals. I do see some reversal signals, right? But those reversals are, for me, an opportunity to re-enter. So we had once, and I'm going to be waiting for the next one to play out. So despite we started bearish, I think I can show you why I'm still bullish. And this is going to remain for the next quarters, right? At least I would say all of this year. all of this year, unless we start breaking dynamic reactor on daily and weekly. So that would change things a little bit. And then I'll come back and revisit the Bollinger Bands. I'm going to come back and revisit my MVP oscillator, so on and so forth, right? So that's what I got for you guys. Any questions so far? Awesome. Awesome. All right. All right, guys. So I think this is the end of the session. Thank you so much for joining. Also, if you guys have any questions, let me know in the side chat. Feel free to add me on the public channels. I'll try to be there as soon as possible. Thank you very much, Coach Jose. My pleasure, my friend. My pleasure, of course. And we're going to keep an eye on this, right? So despite everybody going nuts, right? I mean, we've seen this before. We've seen this before. Guys, we were together at Piper Academy when everybody was losing their stuff, their shit in here, right? And even who said, I think Da Vinci, respectable, but still he said, end of the bull market. What is this, right? I don't know. For me, that's not the end of the bull market, right? We were on tracking here, the same thing we're going to be doing at this point until I start seeing real confirmation. I will not be just running away, right? And that is because of the ETF. So the ETF has changed the game, and we need to wait and see, because this is the first weird cycle, just so you know. The last one, yeah, kind of was weird. Not a blow off top. It's like double topping here, right? No blow off, but double. And then a vanilla movement. And then, well, the bear market, right? Not this, the previous one. Well, you know the one that I'm talking about. Daily, all the way back down there. This one here, all right? But now I think this is a truly different cycle. This was just this was the intermediate between a blow off top and whatever is coming. What's coming, it's unknown. I guess it's gonna be the same as gold, which we're gonna have a giga pump. Giga pump, don't expect it to be 500K as I mentioned. There's still a chance, all right? I love it for this to happen, but we need to keep being realistic, right? Nonetheless, we'll keep a track on it. So far, just so you know, here between us, my next target is 200K. So 200K for the next giga pump. And I think that'll be the end of the bull market. We'll see how that goes. But other than that, guys, thank you so much for joining. And I guess I'll see you guys on the next class. Maybe 233. That'll be fantastic, brother. That'll be fantastic. Again, before, I mean, I know we're talking now big numbers. I know I said goodbye, but this is important. Let's keep track of this day by day, right? Let's not blind ourselves, right, with the flashlight. So I know it's exciting. I know, like, this is a good opportunity for that retracement. Everybody that did not purchase before, right now it's all right. This is it, right? Everybody would experience. But we still need to be, I'm very excited, man. I'm very excited. But we still need to be very, very careful. And Jesse, I hope, man. I hope. Oh, hopefully the gods of crypto hear you, my friend. All right, guys. So that will be it for me today.